Right. I think we're live, so if someone watching can let us know whether you can see and hear. An advert? Quality.
We're live.
We're live, are we? Sorry. Aha, right, let me turn the sound down. You didn't want to see yourself, did you? I'll turn it that way.
That's alright.
I can see how many, so we've got 9 people in at the moment.
Hello.
Hi. And we've got Angie hiding around the corner there. You're just in shot, Angie.
Yeah, just about.
So Angie's going to be taking the notes. If you want to ask any questions, pop it in the comments, and if you can just let us know whether it's a question for me or Mark, or both of us.
You say hello to your daughter.
Oh, and I've got to say, hello Poppy. Hi Poppy, how you doing?
Hello, Lucy.
With Lucy tuned in as well.
Oh, Lucy.
How's the sound, everyone? Is it all right? Hello? Anyone hear me? Who we got in? Steve Blakemore, Dave Fielding, Poppy, Classic and Custom. That's Tom Mason, not Mini Tom. Yeah.
Alright.
We're getting thumbs up on the sound.
Excellent, cool. So we've got 20 people in. We might as well get one of the first questions out of the way to get it sort of kicked off. So it's a Q&A, so any questions you want to ask, pop it down in the description down the bottom or the comments section.
Please.
Mark says go easy on him. We'll ask that one in a minute. So we're going, the first question's from William Murphy, and he says you already have an impressive collection of minis, but what would you like to add that you don't already own?
My next one I'd like is a Woody, Traveller Woody, in red.
In red.
Yeah.
What sort of year are Woodies? I don't know them that well.
I think sort of 63. I think they're 63 to 70. I think I've not really looked into them that much, so. But I just obviously the one from who's got it? The red racing one.
Ah, the historic one at Sorry, Goodwood.
Yeah, I love that one. Obviously I wouldn't get a racing one, but that's probably next on my list. And then maybe a Swift Tune Magic.
Very nice. And of course, I take it you'll be doing all the carpentry on the Woody.
Maybe.
That's quite. What is it? Ash? What do they use?
I think it is ash. Yeah.
I suppose it must be specially made because they must steam it all round to make the shapes and that sort of thing. So, question from me actually early on, when I was thinking about earlier while I was going around the golf course. Looking back on the ERA build, what was the toughest moment? What was the bit where you went to bed in the evening thinking, oh God, what am I going to do about this? What did you lose sleep over?
Probably whether the engine was knackered after the hydraulic lock. I think probably that was scary.
Yeah, I lost a bit of sleep over that as well. I think, luckily, I'm not sure, whether it's coincidence that the starter motors are engineered to fail rather than bend a conrod. I don't know, but it was quite lucky that the starter broke before it broke anything else. But I'm not actually sure. I mean, cranking it over, the starter motor's obviously got quite a lot of torque, but I don't know whether it would have enough power, enough energy, enough torque to be able to bend a rod or something like that. But anyway, it's kind of a bit of a godsend that it just broke the starter motor, really.
Yeah. A cheap godsend.
Oh wow. Ben Foot, I cannot. Ben Foot. Ben, we've been on the channel for a very long time, has donated. So thank you very much, Ben. That is really generous of you. Thank you. It's very kind. Did you have a question? No? Well, thank you very much. Very, very kind of you. Next question. I've got one for you viewers to go for actually. So the video that went up at 12 o'clock today, part 49, I picked that music specifically for the ERA. I listened to it, I thought that sounds absolutely brilliant, I've got to have that music. And I picked it because of the lyrics. So what do you think, the first 10 seconds of that video, what do you think the lyrics are? Because I'd have put money on it being the devil's in the detail. Is that what everyone else thought? See if we get any replies on that one. Question from Dave Fielding. So again, Dave's been a subscriber of the channel for a while.
Hi Dave.
Makes lots of nice comments and that sort of thing. So
very nice comments.
Yeah. Any ideas of how many hours went into the ERA build?
Honestly, not a clue. Not any clue at all. Whenever I'm doing any of the builds, I don't keep a note of anything. The builds go in the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet.
He says hours.
Hours.
No?
Wouldn't have a clue.
I reckon it's probably around about 500 going on.
I don't think it's as much as kit.
Oh really? You can use quicker than kit.
But kit was a lot more involved, I think, just with the interior and stuff like that. But then I don't know. I mean, I did put a lot of stuff on this, then take it off again, and then put it back on, and take it off. Obviously, I sprayed it a few times. So yeah, maybe you're right.
Leading on to a nice question you've got there.
Yeah, leading on to that, have we got Alex Toon in the chat yet?
Not yet, no.
Not yet, he must be putting the boy to bed, I think. So, Alex left a comment earlier on the community page, and Alex's question was, I think you could be clever in a reply to this. He says, how many resprays did the ERA have in total?
Officially, 2.5. Unofficially, 3.5.
Do you know how many litres of paint?
I went through 20 litres of red paint.
Wow. Almost as much as I'll go through product cleaner.
But that was obviously underside, inside the car, and quite a few coats on the outside.
So I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there was kind of, I think your motivation behind that was you sprayed the ERA first, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then sprayed Sprout, and I think you've all seen Sprout, the paint job on it was phenomenal. It is really, really good. And I think you made the mistake of doing too good a job on Sprout.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't 100% happy with Sprout, but you know, for my fourth car that I sprayed, you know, you was over the moon with it. I was happy with it. I was happier with Sprout than I was the ERA. But the problem with having a spray booth, if you like, having all the gear there, is, especially if you're fussy, you spray it, then you find defects. What's the easiest thing to do when you've got everything set up there?
Just do it again.
I just do that again.
Yeah.
And I would have done it again.
Yeah.
I'm not happy with that, and I would have sprayed that again.
Really?
But yeah. But I just thought I can't. It's too much.
Yeah.
I need to get on with the build, and yeah, just lockdown didn't help because I had more time.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
So yeah, never happy.
It does look absolutely stunning now, and it's difficult because the videos sometimes they are quite forgiving, even though all the videos are filmed in sort of 2K. And I look at the videos sometimes. I look at my own cars, and certainly like with PL, the paint on that, the pearlescent in the sun looks absolutely phenomenal. But I've had the car a few years now, and you know, when you look up close, you know there's little bits here and there's little bits there, which don't always show up on the video.
And that's the problem. I can tell you where all the flaws are with that paint, and I would consider spraying it again.
Yeah.
But it's such a nightmare to do.
Yeah.
I would have to strip everything off the outside, taking it all up as a paint in the backside.
Yeah.
It's just, who knows? Let's see what next winter happens.
Question from Ben Food. Am I pronouncing that right? I do apologise if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Will you put paint protection film on it?
As far as a paste, like wax type thing.
I think he means like you get these almost like clear wrap, don't you?
Right. So I actually bought some for when I was doing the work on the engine bay and stuff, and I read up on it, and it said that it could go on new paint, it could do this, and it could do that, and it was fine. So I put it on. That's one of the reasons I resprayed it.
Right.
The second time, because what happened was I put it on and I left sort of air bubbles in the paint in the actual film, and when I peeled all that off, it left rings all over the wings.
Oh really?
And I tried buffing it out. I could not get it out.
No.
So I don't know whether the paint was not dry enough or cured enough, and that's why it happened. I don't know. So if you do respray a car, don't put it on. You might be respraying it.
Yeah. I guess to be honest, paint protection film is very good, and I think if you've got, you know, a £200,000 McLaren or something like that, then it is an absolute must. And you know, when you're going to be doing, well, abiding by the speed limits obviously, but if you're doing track days and things like that where you might be doing 130, 140 miles an hour, you know, every little chip that comes, or little bit of grit that comes up off the road turns into a chip. Something like the ERA, I suppose you're not going to be doing 20,000 miles a year in it, and I think probably the way that benefit, and I remember Dave Anthony, the last owner of the car, and I think you picked it up on the videos because he sprayed the rear wheel arches because I think it was covered in stone chips. So they're very much like the MPI minis like that, and the rear arches on PO are covered in stone chips, and it's just where I suppose the front tyres fit the stones up and it hits the rear arches. Aside from that, I mean, minis do get stone chips right on the front below the headlights and that, because they're sort of so flat at the front.
I suppose one good thing is if I get chips on it, there's red paint behind it. So
there was a reason for spraying it 2.5 times. There's no pride behind it. Well, Bastix asked a question. I think we covered it off a little bit, but obviously that was 2.5 paint jobs. How much paint does it take to paint a full car inside, out, and underside? So pretty much what you've done on this, but not doing it again.
I would say 5 litres, if you're tight with your paint, is enough for all of that. But that's probably 2 coats of top coat. Yeah. It depends if you're doing base and lacquer as well. So obviously when you're doing base, you mix it 50-50 with thinners, so you get a lot more paint for your money kind of thing. But if you do it in gloss, like 2K gloss, then I'd probably go 7 litres. Yeah. In total.
And I think you probably, again, you know, I just from chatting to you, I just don't assume everyone else knows it as well, but you tried a different lacquer, didn't you, towards the end, which was a lot more expensive, but it was a lot better to spray with.
It's the same with anything. You can either buy cheap and it be okay, or you spend a bit more money and it's a lot better finish. The lacquer I used the first time, I used on kit, and this the first time, and obviously Sprout. But I wasn't happy with the finish out the gun, and obviously you compounded all yours, so you got yours back. Yeah. But the lacquer I used, the clear coat I used the second time, it's come out much thicker. It laid on better, and you can. I mean, I've compounded that a little bit, but it just seems a deeper, better finish.
Yeah.
But it is a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I've got to say, I absolutely admire what you've done with painting, because not only did you know, or you knew very, very little about classic minis a few years ago, never really worked on them in the past, you know, wanted to do the work yourself just so you felt more part of the mini scene. So not only have you learned the mechanical side of things, which I sort of take for granted because I've done it all my life, but the spraying side of things, I've dabbled in spraying before, but it is a bit of a, it is art, you know. You've got to be, you've got the prep work and everything that goes into it is, you know, 80% of it, but when it actually comes to putting the paint on, it is, you know, you do a phenomenally good job for an amateur.
Thank you. I mean, it's difficult because I want things to be the best, and I will always try and use the right tools and whatever. But it's better than what it was on Bolt. Kit was easier because there was like 9 coats of lacquer.
Yeah.
So there was a lot to
play with.
Yeah. It's a learning curve, isn't it? Just the more you do it, the more you learn, the better you get.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll always try most things on anything.
Yeah.
But
just before we take some more questions, I think I just wanted to say, and on, you know, Mark as well, I'm sure, just thanks to everyone that's watched the videos, leave comments, gives a thumbs up. I mean, it does. This last week with the last videos going out, obviously there's been a bit more interest in the ERA, and I've just been blown away by, you know, I'm humbled, and yeah, it's just, you know, thank you very much. Thank, you know, all you people viewing, watching,
liking,
it does,
disliking.
It does make a difference. It genuinely does. And you know, it's been for me. I've been quiet on. I haven't started the Mayfair yet, and I've not done much on the other cars. I've spent a lot of time editing over the last couple of weeks to get that done, but I almost, if I get to the evening, I think, oh, I've got no footage for next week. It actually forces me. I think, right, I need to go out into the garage and go and do something. So yeah, and I mean, really, you know, COVID's been a massive impact this year, and ordinarily, I think it would have been the cars, Sprout and the ERA, I'm pretty sure would have been done for the London to Brighton. I mean, if I was down there helping you out, we'd have got there. And then it would have been sort of the summer of going to shows and slightly different videos. So it seems to me like the ERA's gone on forever. But I mean, I'm trying to think when you started it, you know, and I'm sure Paul Jeffries is watching, but we had that first day down there where...
That was October, wasn't it?
October, yeah. We just stripped the whole car in one day.
Then it went off to be sandblasted, which was a few weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't think we started the welding until January.
Yeah, it's probably about that, wasn't it? Yeah. So it's still been a pretty quick build, hasn't it? I suppose 10, 11 months from start to finish, but it is, I've always said right from the start, it's a very, very complicated car. There's so much different on an ERA. It is just a mini, but there's so many little nuances and bits that are different, as we found out during the build. Wiring looms, brackets.
Can you just confirm, Philip Short way back asked who owns the ERA?
Absolutely, Mark. Although Rodri doesn't know that, he thinks it belongs to a customer, I think.
I'm not allowed to smoke customer cars.
Just if you don't know, guys, I'm sure there's, you know, lots of people watching the videos over the past, some new, some old, but this is just our hobby. This is not Classic Mini Workshop, it's not a business, you know, they're just our cars, we just do it for a hobby, and we put the videos up just because it's interesting.
Someone might be interested.
Yeah.
Well,
they're not how to.
I have a lot more questions for you, but I just have an urgent one that comes in. There's someone that says, "I'm so proud of you and I love you so much. When can I get a new Mini?" Someone with the name of Lucy.
How many minis says Lucy?
Lucy's got 2 minis.
Lucy's got a kit.
And she's got Prince, the Portsmouth, which she doesn't drive either. She doesn't like it anymore, so I've got to sell it.
What's that say, sorry? Name? Poramon. Ask Mark. Would you recommend going back to bare metal on a respray?
Only if you're trying to find rust. The only reason I go back to bare metal is because, as I found with this one, and no disrespect to Dave and Anthony, the previous owner, there was a lot of filler on this. There was a lot of areas that I'd never have thought there was rust there until it was stripped back to bare metal. So if it's just a basic respray, then it's probably not worth it. But if you want to go full, this is a rust-free Mini, then definitely.
Yeah. It's the only way of knowing for definite, really, isn't it? And we've often talked about, because obviously the ERA kit before and bolt as well. We each time been stripped back to a bare shell and then gone off to be shot blasted.
Yeah.
But even then, even when it comes back from shot blasting, so shot blast it, they put it in an X primer. But even then, you don't know. You still got to get into the nooks and crannies, the joints and that sort of thing, and you still find rust there.
Yeah.
I think the only way you can have them chemical dipped, can't you? But there's pros and cons for each. I think a lot of people don't like sandblasting because the sand gets everywhere. But what we found is when it's on the jig, when you're working on it, when you're welding, it will get rolled over 20, 30 times. If there's any sand in there, by the time you've got to the point where you're painting it again, it's all gone. Alex, the DJSE, does he own a Mini?
I see he makes videos about it, but I don't know.
Banging on about some wheels or something the other day.
Hello, Alex.
Alex says, you say a lot of things you're not 100% happy with.
Yeah.
What's the best bit or bit that you are most happy with? So I think the boot was it 90% or 80%?
95%.
95. And there was something the other day that you're only 70% happy with.
Honestly, I'm probably not 100% happy with any of it. But I can always do better. And I get frustrated that I'll do something and then I find a flaw with it, or there's always something. And maybe I'm just overcritical, but it's just in my nature. I get the same thing at work, so
yeah,
it's a difficult one. I don't think there's anything I'm 100% happy with.
If it's any consolation, I don't think a single Mini come off the production line that was 100%. So you were building to exacting standards, same as Rover. Question from Classic Car Case. That's Dave Jag. Yeah, Dave Jag.
Dave.
Right, Dave. We've got what's that called, the Godfather? We've got the Godfather in the house. Was the ERA easier or harder than kit to build?
The ERA was harder because, one, I had to do it on my own, most of it on my own. Obviously Keith helped with the welding, and then we went into lockdown, so the ERA was harder. There was a lot more technical stuff on kit with the interior and the dash, but I mean, I suppose generally kit was quite an easy build, really. This was a harder build. The amount that goes on in the engine bay, the electrical system, the dash, all the console and stuff. It's just sometimes I just felt out my depth.
Yeah.
So when you come down and sort out the electrical bits and whatever, it was just The biggest problem I had with this car was, although we videoed the entire strip down, I didn't take enough photos.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate lockdown.
Yeah.
You not being here, Paul Jeffries not being here, so I didn't know how things went back together.
Yeah.
Just it was so difficult. So
I think you might say I'm wrong on this. I think you've learned from the kit build, because I remember you saying to you right even before you'd done the ERA, I said don't throw anything away. And I think that really sort of rung true with this. I remember even the point the inner wings, wasn't it? So there were new inner wings and they didn't have little brackets on that were meant to be there and things like that. I guess that's my advice for anyone else that's doing a mini build really. Photos are really important nowadays, and it does, for you, it's not too much help because obviously you're videoing it, but you've got the SD card and the GoPro there, you can't really go back and review it very well. But certainly when I'm videoing everything, every now and again I'll go back and I'll look at the video, but if you can't do that, loads and loads of photos, and then don't throw anything away until it's finished. You'll be surprised at how many times you just need to just go back and just look at something.
And I did throw some bits away that I needed to know how they went back on, but yeah, photos is key. When I strip down the Cooper now through the next winter, I will take photos of everything, even if I don't need them. I'm just going to take photos.
Next question from Philip Plant.
I feel it.
This might be a difficult one to answer this. What was the total cost of the ERA excluding your time?
I don't know is the honest answer. It was the same with kit, same with build, bolt. Like I say, I get the receipts, and they go in a drawer in the filing cabinet, and then that's just, I never add them up. I've never added them up. Part of it is I don't want, me and Lucy don't want to know of how extravagant we've been. I mean, I can do the big figures, like the mini spares was 4.5, engine was 7, interior was 4.5. I think they're the three sort of biggest things.
I mean, I'm just doing maths in my head. I think that's 16 grand.
Yeah, so we're just round up to 25 grand. Give or take. Yeah, 1,000. And I'll never know, because I'll never sit down and add it all up.
It is amazingly difficult. I know when all the time I had Vinny, I did keep track of every penny I'd spent on it, literally down to 50p here and £1 there and that sort of thing. And that was probably because I was doing it a little bit at a time. It wasn't, I didn't. Vinny was sort of a rolling restoration and rolling conversion. I just done it bit by bit as I go. But I certainly know with Sprout, I tried doing the same with Sprout. And of course, you just forget, don't you? You come out in the garage, you do some bits. It gets to 9:30, 10 o'clock, and you think it's a bit late to be grinding now. I'll go indoors. And you're on eBay, aren't you? And I'll just get some of that. I'll just get some rubber bands. I'll just get some of this. And of course, you do that a few nights in a row, don't you? A week later, a load of stuff turns up on the doorstep. And you think, oh yeah, I kind of remember ordering that now.
Yeah, I normally get text through the day from Lou. Delivery's here, and a photo, then another delivery, and another photo. And half the time, I don't know what's being delivered.
Yeah.
Until you go, yeah, that's what it is, that's what it is.
Dead Donkey's question, I think it's a question for both of us, or maybe an ask. It says, how to DIY spray your car at home might be a good idea. So is that a request?
It's more of an idea maybe for
yeah, so I think, so my plan with the Mayfair, which is kind of my new project, it wants little bits of bodywork. I want to keep as much original paint as possible. It wants the seals painting, it wants a little bit on the front end, but I don't want to respray the whole car, just to, really, it's not, once I've resprayed the whole lot, it's not original then, and I might change my mind on that. So,
do you know what's base and lacquer?
It's solid, yeah, definitely solid. So my plan with that is, and as I say, I've complimented Mark earlier about spraying. Spraying is something I'm not that good at. I would love to be better at it. And now I've got the garage in here, I've got a ceiling in there, and I'm thinking to myself, I could get a curtain similar to yours, Mark. I could clean up all this area, and I can have a go at doing a little bit. So, in answer to that sort of question or request, Dead Donkey, yes, I will be having a go this winter.
It might not be a masterclass.
Yeah, it might not be a masterclass. I have done some stuff in the past on PL and on Sprout. I've done the arches, seals, and the underside with cans from Paints for You, and they just do. You order a pack, you go on there, you put your paint code in. Doesn't matter whether it's base and lacquer or just solid colour. They'll send you out what you need. It's professional quality paint, and I'd say that's fantastic stuff. Certainly when I first started doing Sprout last year, my original plan before I got really involved with it is that I thought I'll put a front end on it and I was going to sprout with cans. But as you know, it kind of got a bit carried away with Sprout, and yeah, that was meant to be a car to sell. Still outside. Peter Demetrio, again, hi Peter, been on the channel for a long time. The question for me, are you tempted to get another ERA? I would be lying if I said no. I'm always tempted. I am
after driving this one as well.
Yeah, I am extremely. I'm gutted that I sold my 2-1. So I had a black one which was R1024. I think I owned that in probably 2002, 2003. I paid 1,500 quid for that ERA. Unbelievable. I mean, to buy one for that now wouldn't, just not impossible. You couldn't buy a Russell. You couldn't even buy a crushed ERA for 1,500 quid. And I had R1067, I think it was as well, which was not a British Racing Green. I mean, they're not British Racing Green, are they? It was a green ERA.
I thought they were British Racing Green.
I think they are, but they're not the same as the Rover. There's a slight different colouring. You get different tints of British Racing Green, don't you? But yeah, I had 2 of them, sold 2 of them. Both of them, to be honest, I probably broke even on what I sold them for. I sold the first one, I think they both sold for pretty much the same. I sold the first one for £8,000 and it went to Belgium, never seen it again since. And it was black, so it was even more rare than the other cars. And then the green one I sold for £8,000, having done a load of work on it, but that is life. I think I sold the first one because we had kids, and I sold the second one because we moved house or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, if one come up, and one did last year, and the seller was being a bit silly with the price, I almost bought it instead of Sprout. But yeah, it is what it is. If one comes up for the right price, I might buy it. But you get
never say never.
Never say never. Yeah. Mini Tom. Is that the real Mini Tom?
Hello, Arthur.
Is Arthur watching as well?
He is, he's watching with Lucy, and he
Wow.
says, Keith's garage is so clean.
Yeah, we won't go into my garage at the moment, it's a little bit dirty.
That must mean the fortnight servers are down, surely. Charlie will be watching in a minute.
I don't think you've been watching, Arthur. It's like you want to talk back.
Yeah.
Question for both, but I think it's probably, I'll let you answer it first, Mark. So from Mini Tom, he said you've both done a cracking job, so thank you very much, Mini Tom. I can't take the credit for the RE. I'll take a bit of credit, but I think, honestly, I'm so impressed with what Mark's done with the ERA. A monumentally difficult task to do. 20 years ago, as an apprentice mechanic, it was probably a little bit more than 20 now, if someone had given me that job to do, it would have overwhelmed me, so well done. So Mini Tom said, if a complete novice was contemplating DIY or professional restorer to restore their Mini, what would your advice be? So what you're saying is, a complete novice, do you pay someone 20 grand to restore it, or do you have a go at doing it yourself as a complete novice? I guess, like I say, it's probably a better question to you because you've been in that situation.
I suppose if it's all about the confidence. If you're confident in something and you want to do it, then you can do anything if you put your mind to it. But I suppose there's other things involved with that. You know, have you got the right tools? Have you got everything you need to do it? The problem with paying someone 20 grand to do a job for you, and I've had experience with that, is that it's not always done how you want it. It's not done however perfect you may want it. You're paying 20 grand, you want a pretty much perfect job. So it's a difficult one. It's, you know, I had the funds behind me. I generally buy the tools I need to buy. I want to succeed in most of the things I try to do, and I was always going to build the Mini, you know, with obviously your help. So it's a difficult one to call, really. It's down to each individual of what they can do, what they can afford, and whether they want. For me, to build this, or to build kit or bolt, I can stand back and look at it. I think I did that. Whereas some of the comments I had from people when I paid to have cars restored was I just threw money at it. You know, I didn't feel part of the Mini community because I never touched the Mini, and I thought that was quite harsh. But yeah, it is a difficult one. If you've got the money, you've got the tools, and you're confident enough, then give it a go.
Yeah, I think my view on it, probably looking at it from a slightly different angle, is that looking at what professionals are all out there now and people's experience in the motor trade with Minis, it's becoming fewer and fewer. And if you want to get a Mini restored, you have got to be paying top money for it. You can't just go out nowadays and take it to a local garage and get them to do it because they don't know about it.
But you can also get ripped off.
Yeah,
and I have been, or tried to be.
Yeah.
So it is a difficult one.
But I think the great thing about Minis though is if you are of that mindset where, you know, if my iPhone battery dies or something like that, I don't take it into a shop to go and get it done. The first thing I do is search on YouTube, iPhone 6S battery replacement, watch a 10-minute video. I think I could do that.
Yeah.
Never done it before in my life, but I'll give it a go. And that's generally what I do with everything. The washing machine breaks down, YouTube. And if you're that way, if you're happy to do that sort of thing, a Mini is quite a good car to do because there is loads of information out there. People help out.
Appliances. I don't do appliance repairs, so I don't touch tumble dryers or washing machines, and specialist people for them. Minis, I can build a Mini, repair a tumble dryer, babe.
Sounds like a get out there.
I'll just buy a new one.
A question from Russ Bucket for me. So he says tips for welding. So I'm absolutely no expert welder. I've taught by trial and error. My trade used to be mechanics, getting your hands dirty, so I was never bodywork or welding or anything like that. I've always had a keen interest in welding now, I quite enjoy it, and it's one of those things that when you get it right, it's actually quite satisfying to do, but it can be extremely frustrating as well.
Oh yeah.
The number one thing with MIG welding, which is what people commonly do, it applies to arc welding as well, is cleanliness, clean metal. You cannot weld rust to rust, you cannot weld dirty metal to clean metal. Absolutely clean and good metal as well. I see so many people will clean up a rusty bit of metal and then they'll try and weld it afterwards and they wonder why they're just blowing holes in it. If you stuck a micrometer on that metal, it'd probably be half the thickness it was before because the corrosion has just corroded away that top surface of metal. And you might clean it up and it might look shiny, but it will not be as thick as the original bit of metal. If you can get two perfectly clean bits of metal side by side, welding them together is relatively easy. The difficult bit is the prep and getting to that point. And sometimes things that contamination, just dirt on the metal, can make a massive difference when you're MIG welding. It relies on inert gas. That's what the I is in MIG, inert gas. And I certainly find you'll clean metal up really clean, particularly when you're welding near any joint or seam or something like that where they put seam sealer. Seam sealer's horrible stuff. Once you heat that up, the gas it gives off just ruins your weld. So number one tip is as clean as it can be, I guess. Number two tip is don't beat yourself up about it. I got the welder out a couple of days ago to do a bit of welding on my sister's car. It's the first bit of welding I've done for 8 or 9 months. It was crap. It does take a little bit of getting used to and getting the settings right. Sometimes it's better just to get a couple of bits of metal, practice a little bit before you go and try doing it on the car if you've not welded for a while recently. And just perseverance really, just keep at it. Don't be scared to have a fiddle around with the settings on the welder and try and get it right. Again, there's some great videos on there of how to MIG weld, what to look for. If you're always blowing holes through it, it's not necessarily that you've got too much power there. It might be that the wire speed is too slow. So yeah, it's one of those things that the only way to get good at it is just practice, and you will get good. But if you start out with fresh, clean metal, you're going to make your life so much easier. Hope that helps. Dale Warren, question for Keith. What are my plans for the Mayfair? I've had a good time to think of this now. I've taken some feedback through the channel as well. Initially I was toying with the idea of do I convert it to manual, and the great thing about having some time to think about it in between and listening to people's comments and feedback is you get to reflect on it and you get to think, do you know what, that's a good idea actually. And I can't remember who said it, but someone put in one of the comments about converting it to manual. The money it costs you to convert it to manual, yes, it may be a little bit more desirable when it comes to sell it, because people tend to go for manual cars, so it might make it a little bit easier to sell, and you might get a little bit more money for it, but the money it's going to cost to convert it, you're not going to get it back. No. And it's a 12,000 mile original car, and as soon as I convert it to manual, it's been modified. Yeah. So I'm not going to go and put 20,000 miles on it a year. I probably won't to put 2,000 miles on it a year, and it actually drives really nicely. Auto gearboxes in minis, when they work properly, they are really nice gearboxes. They're a real feat of engineering to think they've fitted an automatic gearbox on a 1300cc car under the engine, running on the same oil, fits under the front end of a Mini. They were light years ahead of any other manufacturer out there. If you drive an early sort of Mark II, Mark III Ford Fiesta automatic with a CVT gearbox, they are awful. They are awful, and those were a car that was made 20 years after the Mini. Small engines, automatics, never really went together, but they've done a great job with it in the Mini. So I will be leaving it manual. I will take the engine out. Auto, sorry. I will strip it down. I'll put it back together again. I'll put some fresh paint on it. Put new gaskets in it. That will stay as it is. And pretty much that will be the theme for the rest of the car, really. It's just going to get completely stripped down, cleaned up, put that together, and keep as many bits original as I can do, really.
I think you'll get as much money for that by keeping the original and an auto. There will be someone out there that wants to buy an auto.
In its original state,
Yes, that's kind of plans for the Mayfair. Dave Fielding, question for both. Any idea when we might get to see Sprout and the ERA at a show?
Well, depends on when the shows start up again. What's the first one? Brooklands, normally Brooklands Mini Day.
Yeah, March usually, isn't it?
So yeah, there'll be Brooklands, London to Brighton, which is May. I think definitely Bewley. That's always a good show. I've never done Stamford Hall or any of the sort of shows up north, so I know there's sort of a lot of interest in this, so I suppose it spurs me on to go that extra mile and go to the shows further north, kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, I'll be at a few more sort of shows further north and stuff.
Yeah, I was. I'm just gagging to get to a show, and I was really in two minds about Gaydon last week, and I was going to go to Gaydon. I just left it late. I left it so I couldn't book tickets. I know Paul Jeffries phoned them up for me and made some inquiries, and I'm sure they'd have probably done something for us, but I just thought it's a long way to go up there and not know where you're parked, and I don't know. So it's a bit gutting not to go to Gaydon, but there was a cost as well, because I think if you booked in advance, it was like £8 for a car, and that was driver and passenger. But they said if you turn up on the day, it's 14 quid each, but you get entry to the museum, which we got anyway. So it's kind of like, yeah, I was a little bit gutted to miss Gaydon, but aside from that, earliest mini show of the year is probably going to be Brooklands. Will be the first one, I think. So,
but if it's raining, it won't be at Brooklands.
this question from Lucy. How much? Lucy said, if it wasn't minis you loved, what car do you think it would be?
Good question, babe. So my first car was a Mini, and I think that's where all of this stemmed from. But I also had I did like Fords. I like the old XR2. Was it Mark II XR2i?
Yeah.
I always like the Cosworth, Escort Cosworths. So I think, and I still do like Fords. If I could actually afford one, babe, I'd like to get a Sierra Cosworth or an Escort Cosworth. So I think, yeah, if it wasn't Minis, I think it'd be Fords.
I exactly the same as you there. If it wasn't minis, it'd be classic Fords. Same sort of thing. I look now, but they're too expensive now. But Escort RS Turbo, just because back in the day when I first started driving, it was the car to have for the boy racer. Couldn't afford a Cosworth, no one could, but Escort RS Turbo, that was a car to have. Mercury grey, 90 spec. Lovely. But they go for 20 grand now.
I'm sure, sort of 10, 12 years ago.
Couple of grand.
Yeah, couple of grand, yeah. And I did consider buying one. I just didn't expect them to go so through the roof with cost.
Question from Adam Campion. Hi, Adam.
Hello, Adam.
How you doing, mate? I'll tell you what. I'm going to sound proper. I don't know, but you look proper fit now.
Gay.
I'll let you say it, but I'm amazed by how much weight he's lost and how athletic you look, Adam. So well done. Adam says, question for Mark: when are you going to do an engine swap mini?
I assume it means take an A series out.
Yeah,
but never.
I think the Cooper S would be good. It'd be good for quick clickbait, couldn't we? Civic Type R and a Cooper S.
For me, if it's not got an A series, it's not a Mini. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
So I will never ever put anything other than A series in a Mini.
What about, so twist on this, what about like a CAD 16 valve head or a K11, K1000, whatever it is, 16 valve BMW motorbike head on the A series?
The thing is, as I've found, you can do so much with an A series. Obviously I've got Bolt, which is 1380, you know, we're talking 130 miles an hour, 140 brake. This 124 brake. I don't really need much more than that.
No.
It's, you know, the Cooper S is 105 brake, and you can do. I can get more power out of any of these.
Yeah.
So you know, it's an A series, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're easy to work on.
Yeah.
You know, stick with what you know, and if I wanted to, I could throw loads of money at that, get loads more power out of it. But
I mean, I've got to admit that is quick enough to scare me. When I filmed the video for the last update, and I went down some country roads, it was enough for me to go, bloody hell, calm down a bit. It's like, it was scary, and certainly like with Bolt, when we've done the track days on it, different tracks are different. You know, there are some longer tracks, but Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, which is probably my favourite place to be. I mean, you and I have both been going around there, and there have been cars with probably 2 or 3 times as much power. You know, probably 5 or 10 times more expensive.
Eat my dust.
Yeah, and you just you know, up until you get onto that final straight round Paddock and all the other tight corners at Brands Hatch, it's as quick as it needs to be, isn't it? It's as quick as anything else out there. Huge amount of fun. And I guess Vinny used to scare me a little bit as well. Vinny only had 100 brake horsepower, but every now and again I'd drive that and I used to think, would I really want something with twice the amount of power as this? Because you've got to put the power down on the road, which is the biggest problem when you're running 12 or 13 inch wheels. If you've got a 250 brake horsepower, I mean, there's some ridiculous ones out there, 500 brake horsepower minis.
But I don't think it's all just brake horsepower, is it? It's torque.
Yeah,
That's what's scary on that, is the torque.
Yeah. Phil Plant, question for Mark. What's the next project?
The next project is my Mark III Mini Cooper S, 1970. It's when I bought it, it was tired. It's been restored before. It's got chips all over it. I've since found out it's got overseals both sides. There's also a hole through the floor through the overseal. So I mean, generally the bodywork is okay. If it wasn't for the seals, then I could probably get away with bare metal respray. The engine's already been done by Swift Tune, so with the engine it's just a case of taking the engine out, doing all the body work and then putting the engine back in, maybe a bit of a paint up, but yeah, so the Mark III Cooper S is next.
I think it's one of those cars that I'd describe as a 6-footer. It's a lovely car, and you stand 6 foot away, and there's nothing wrong with it. No. It's when you get in close, isn't it? You start to see, just like you say, it's just the paint is a bit old now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got overseals on it, so you're never quite sure what's behind that. And it may be that there's nothing behind it, and it's all perfect, but it's just that not knowing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you want it to be right. I mean, a car like that nowadays, I mean, Mark III Cooper S, they go for 25 grand plus, don't they? Up to
25 to 35,
yeah,
depends on the condition.
And to go and see one that's got overseals on it straight away, that's kind of like, yeah, so.
I suppose the problem is with all the builds I do, I don't want to spend all this money. I know that this car is rust free.
Yeah. And
it will be rust free, you know, it's in a heated garage, it's dry, it'll be rust free for hopefully forever. But I don't want to spend all the money on it and then in 3 years' time wish that I've done a little bit more on it because the rust coming through. So, yeah.
Benfoot, question for both. Will you come to the island in Italy next year?
That's a difficult one for me because me and my wife Lucy, it was our 10-year anniversary this year, and we were supposed to renew our vows, and COVID obviously made that be cancelled, so we've postponed it till next year, and that date is the 22nd of May, and I think is it the same weekend?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
So we won't be going to Ireland, Italy, unfortunately.
Yeah, so same with me, I guess. So I'll be along with Mark, helping him celebrate the day. So sometimes these things, just timing doesn't work out, does it? Would love to go. Italy's a beautiful place. Still not quite sure how it will be with COVID next year with the Ironman, but fingers crossed. Really gutted. Couldn't do Germany this year, but obviously 2022 for Germany. I'll definitely be there for that.
Yeah, we'll be
there in Sprout. So yeah. Mini Tom, question for me. Mini Tom, how you doing? He says, is it true that Tony is so in awe of you?
Tony.
Is it true that Tony is so in awe of you, he once sent you a Valentine's card? That up until last week, I would have said that was true. Because I did get a Valentine's card. It was very nice. I've got to be honest, it's one of those things, when you've been married 20 years, you know, you get a Valentine's card through the post, you think, oh, this is... I could be in trouble here, I hope it's from a mate. And I opened it up and I thought it was Tony. And I'm sure when Tony was here, I said thanks for the Valentine's card, and he just laughed. But he probably didn't realise it was from you. So thank you, Mini Tom. I really did appreciate that. It made me blush. It was from Mini Tom. Yeah, did you have me worried for a moment? Not that I'd ever do anything I shouldn't do, but you know, you never know. You have admirers. Dave Anthony. So Dave Anthony, hi Dave. Dave is the original owner of the ERA, who, am I right, did he own it from brand new?
From brand new, yeah.
From brand new.
Yeah.
262,000 miles. And yeah, you know, I've said this right from the start, Mark has done a full restoration on the car, but that is in no reflection to how the car was when Mark got it. It was actually a tidy ERA, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And if you wanted to go and buy an ERA that you could use and take to shows, it was good. If you wanted to take to a show and win a concourse, it probably wasn't that.
No.
But it very well maintained, very well looked after. And I had exactly the same with Sprout. The guy that I bought it from, I told him it was going to be on YouTube, and he watched the videos right to the end, and then I met up with him afterwards and he sat in the car again. It was really nice. So hopefully, Dave, you can see what myself and Mark have done, and hopefully we've done it proud. It's, you know, it's on its second owner now, and
Yeah.
sure, it probably won't do another 262,000 miles, but I'm sure it will last another 30 years.
If you're over this way, Dave, Sussex, Shoreham, let me know and you can take it for a spin.
And I think I've just put words in Dave's mouth actually, because Dave said his question or his comment was he's so glad to see a top job done.
Thank you.
He said it will, you know, great job, which I'm sure will go on for another 30 years, especially as it lives indoors now. So
It does.
I mean,
It will go out, just not in the rain much.
Yeah, just not out.
Yeah, not out.
yeah, I mean, it almost lives in a subtropical climate, doesn't it, in your cage?
Yeah.
Dale Warren, question for Mark.
Dale?
Why a Mini?
So my first car was a Mini, which I kind of, not restored, but kind of worked on it with my dad when I was sort of 15, 16, 17. And then I loved it. You know, it had little alloy arches on the side, had wide wheels, bucket seats. My uncle sprayed it black. My dad tried doing like crosses on the roof, but he ended up with a load of red stripes from a deck chair. But I loved it, and even back then, people, you know, I drive it around. People still remember. You know, my old friends still remember that Mini. But unfortunately, I had to sell it because I was a carpenter. I had to get a van, and it just my work life took over. So it was only 2014 that the business was all set up and family was all set up. And I just had some spare money, and so I bought roofers. It's, I suppose, the infatuation, obsession, maybe stems from when I had my first Mini, but I don't really know what the infatuation is.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
For me, it's always been the underdog thing. I've always backed the underdog, and I always used to quite like that. I mean, it was small, and it was like, I just love, you know, my first car was a Mini as well, and all my mates had Volkswagen Golfs. They weren't GTIs because they couldn't afford the insurance, but they were 1600 and proper cars, hatchback, and you know, there was me and the Mini, and I always used to just love the fact that it was just as quick, You just had to drive it a bit harder, but yeah, it was just, I guess, the character of it. I mean, that's why I still like them now. I've said for a long time I don't particularly enjoy driving minis. I like driving the ERA, by the way, and I like driving PL, but in general, I don't like, it's not, the thought of getting in and doing a 3-hour road trip in one is not something that appeals to me.
No.
Stick it in the garage, get it out every few weeks and go for a bit of a black round the B road, you know, you forget about all the rattles and noises and things like that, you put it back in again, but when you start driving them daily, I couldn't think of anything worse, to be honest, and I did have minis as daily drivers, but that was back when I was far more tolerant.
They're nice toys, aren't they?
Yeah. So Richard J asked similar sort of questions, so we know Keith's been into minis for years. So he's asked, how did you get into them, which I think we've already answered, but he said, second question is how did you get into restoring them? So,
well, when I bought Rufus, it was kind of there or thereabouts, needed carpets and stuff, which I paid someone to do that, and over the next sort of 2 years, I was just buying. I bought a few autos. I bought the Cooper S, the van, the pickup, which I had restored by someone else, and I just felt that I wasn't fully accepted in my own club, the mini community around that, because I just used to buy the cars. And a lot of people that own the minis, that they work on them, they do this and they do that, don't necessarily restore them, and I suppose a bit of arrogance, I just thought, well, I can do that, I did. There you go.
just before they get on to the next question, so I can see there's 47 people watching, which is absolutely fantastic. There's 3 thumbs up. Do me a favour, go and hit the thumbs up button. 1, it's really nice.
Don't touch that dislike button.
And 2, it helps the YouTube algorithm, which no one understands anyway, but apparently it does. People leaving comments and giving thumbs up. YouTube like that sort of stuff, so really appreciate it. You go and smash that thumbs up button now, that'd be brilliant. Question from Russ Bucket for both of us. I'll let you go first, Mark. What's your favourite classic mini specific tool?
I'm obviously quite new to mini tools, 3 years in, and there's loads of tools I still haven't got or probably don't even know I need yet. Favourite mini tool? I don't really think about it.
Mine, I think, has got to be, just because it's cheap-ish, it's used the most, and I've experienced of not using a good one or not having one, is a rear brake adjusting tool. So I've got one I bought when I used to work in garages. It's a snap-on one, so very, very good quality. It was probably about 30 quid at the time, but the amount of times I've used it, you know, every service, in between services, rebuilding rear brakes, it's invaluable. If you've got perfect brakes on a car, you can get away with a spanner, or you can get away with a cheap, I don't know, Kamasa Tools one or something like that. As soon as you come across a mini that's got seized rear brake adjusters and you can't get the drums off, you're relying on a good quality tool then to be able to work it backwards and forwards. So that's probably my favourite tool, just because it gets used the most, I think, really.
I don't think I've got the experience with minis and tools to have a favourite yet.
Yeah. No, I can understand that, yeah.
So.
Another question from Russ Bucket. Would you ever professionally race minis?
Hi, babe. Yes. Well, I would like to. Obviously, I've got Bolt, and that satisfies my need for speed at the moment. But business is too busy, you know, work, family. I see myself possibly getting into historic racing, but I'm talking like 10 years time. I'm a bit greyer, older, fatter. So that is something, you know, I'm not a racer. I don't think I'm ever going to be a racer, but I would like to. I think I can get there or thereabouts. So yeah, it is something I would like to get into.
Yeah, and I don't know, something that interests me, but not that much. I don't think. I genuinely don't think I would be that good as a mini racing driver. I don't think I'm competitive enough. I think I have too much mechanical sympathy, and certainly when I'm driving Bolt and doing 120 miles an hour in Goodwood or somewhere like that, I'm constantly looking at the tyre wall to my left hand side, looking at the speedo, thinking, whoa.
Don't ever look at the speedo.
And then I'll also, you know, in my mechanical head, I'll be thinking, cool, imagine how fast those valves are going, and imagine how fast those needle bearings in the, you know, imagine how fast the wheel bearings are going. And when you're cornering at like full chat and on slick tyres, and you got loads of G-force, and you're thinking, oh, all that's held on by that swivel pin. And
See, I don't think of those things at all. I just think, how fast can I get round this corner?
Alex NSE, again, subscriber to the channel for a while, so hi Alex.
Hello, Alex.
A question for both of us. Would you consider picking a subscribers mini and helping them to get their pride and joy back on the road?
There's an element of risk involved in that, isn't there?
It's
a difficult one, that.
Yeah, I guess it depends what it is by back on the road, really. I mean, we've got, you know, myself and Mark are in Brighton Mini Club, and of course, you know, we all try and help each other out where we can there. For me, with anything like that, I'm more than willing to help people out when I can. But my feeling with it has always been, I'll help people out, but they have to help me out as well. You know, because I've been in the trade, like I've said before, all my life, you know, private jobs, home jobs. And I can remember when me and Mark very first met, you know, I remember Mark dropping me a message on Facebook, can you help me build my minis? Can you help me restore my minis? I want to learn and that sort of thing. And I can remember basically saying to you for ages, like, I don't do private jobs, I don't do home jobs and that sort of thing. And that's probably my way of sort of seeing how serious you are about doing that. I know so many people that are like, Keith, can you help with my mini? Yes, I'll help you with my mini, your mini. Where is it? Oh, it's in Northampton. It's not been started for 20 years. All the tyres are flat. It's rusty as anything. I've got no money. No, I can't help you with your mini. You know, I will help you if you're going to help yourself. But sometimes people will, you know, make an effort. Generally, a lot of people will say to me, as I say, because I've been in the trade all my life and that sort of thing, people will say to me, can you help me with my mini? Can you help me with my car? And I say to them, yeah, bring it to my garage, 2 o'clock on Sunday, and yeah, I'll help you out. Bring me some beers for helping you out. And you'll be surprised, oh no, I can't do Sunday, I can't do 2 o'clock. Oh, I can't come to you, can you come to me? No. Help us out. But yeah, genuinely, you know, it's difficult. Subscribers are all over the place. If I had a subscriber around the corner and they're struggling with a mini, I'd be quite willing to give them a hand, you know. Like I say, it's always, same with sort of, you know, mine and Mark's relationship. It's you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Lovely roof in my garage, you know, I did not know what I was doing or anything like that. So, you know, it's been months and months of Mark asking me questions, and then there'll be months and months of me saying, oh Mark, how's your latest Teletech stuff, and have I done this right, and that sort of thing. It's just yin and yang.
That cupboard door's on upside down.
Is it? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but are those not upside down then as well?
They're wall units and that's the base unit.
Uh,
Sorry. My carpentry brain.
So yeah, long and short, the answer to that question, Alex, is would you consider picking a subscriber and helping them with their Mini? Absolutely. And you said pride and joy there, and I think anyone, if it is their pride and joy, they're genuinely interested in it and they're willing to help out, that's absolutely fine. I can remember years ago someone saying to me, can you help me with my car? And I said, yeah, no problem. Can you service it? Yeah, it's going to take me 3 or 4 hours. Okay, when can you do it? I'll do it Sunday. Right, okay, can you come and paint my garage for me? Oh no, I don't want to do that. Well, why not? You want me to spend 3 or 4 hours servicing your car? Come and paint my garage. Anyone can put paint on the wall. So yeah. Robert Priest, question from Mark.
Hi Robert.
Good one, this. Are you really finished on the ERA? Is there something you want to revisit and change?
No, I'm not finished. I'd like to respray it again. The interior's got to come out and be sent back. Body kit's got to be redone at some point. So yeah, it's unfortunately it's not finished, and who knows, will it ever be finished? I do want a new body kit. There's flaws with it. So no, it's not finished, and it never will be.
I guess someone commented on in the comments earlier on one of the videos, and yeah, I don't think any Mini project or otherwise is ever finished. And I'll tell you what, actually, that is probably one of the reasons for selling Vinny, because it kind of was finished. There was nothing really more. I got to the point where I was replacing parts that I'd replaced before. I was doing things for the sake of doing things. Yes, it could have probably done with a respray Vinny, but I'd got to the point where I'd probably got bored of it, and generally through life, of all the Minis I've owned, it's always been that same situation. When I finish them, they get sold. When I genuinely think that I've done everything I can do to that car, there's nothing left to do with it, I get bored of it and think, I want a new project. So yeah, I don't think they're ever really finished.
No.
There's always just something that wants doing.
Bit of maintenance here and there and cleaning.
Yeah. Jason Ackley, again, subscribes to the channel for a long time, Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Jason.
I think we covered this question off earlier, but just a recap. So, how much does it cost to restore the ERA?
We're just going to say 25 grand.
Yeah, I think that was what we come to earlier. So,
Give or take.
Give or take, yeah.
Peter Demetrio is saying, can you respray his car on the how to respray a Mini for the channel? He's offering that.
do you know what? Again, it's about you know, the 80% of a respray is the prep work,
Yeah.
and I'm sure, you know, if the timing was right, you know, you've got the garage prepped and everything like that. You know, someone turns up in a Mini that's ready to have paint put on it. It's not a big deal, really,
No.
is it? But the prep work
yeah.
is tens, if not. I mean, I think I put about 40 hours of prep into Sprout, and that wasn't back to bare metal.
And to put a top coat on, it's like an hour, really.
Yeah.
But I hate prep. I really hate it. And to prep someone else's car and then spray it, you know, I can spot defects in Sprout in this, where I could have done that a little bit better.
Yeah.
And the risk is the person you're doing it for, are they going to spot those defects and are they going to be unhappy with it? So yeah, I'm not confident enough to do someone else's car that, you know, obviously I know you, but
Yeah.
I don't know other people, and it's a tricky one, isn't it?
Next question is from Dale Warren. Question for me. So Dale's building an A Plus Metro 1291 engine with high compression pistons, large valves, Evolution 1 camshaft, Weber. It says 28 to 36 progressive. Is that the jet sizes? I'm not sure. Or is that the valve sizes? I think valves are usually 2936 or 2935. What kind of power do you think it will have? So 1291, high compression, pistons, large valves, Evo cam, a Weber. I think with it all set up right, I would be disappointed to see anything below 110 brake horsepower with those sort of components. I think you're probably looking around about 120. A lot of it will come down to how good the headwork is.
Headwork, crank,
Yeah.
shaft.
I mean, I've always said, and there's a bit of truth in the rationale behind it, but all the power in an engine is made in the top half of the engine. The bottom half of the engine, the cranks, the pistons, the conrods, all they do is convert that power into rotational energy, speed. The problem is, the reason you upgrade them is because if you make them more powerful, then you bend things and you break things and you overstress cranks and things like that. But generally, all the power is in the top end of the engine, and where you want to be putting your money really is in the head, camshaft, carburetor. That's what makes all the power on an engine, but you need the bottom half as well to deliver the power, because if the bottom half's weak, you can create a lot of power and you just blow an engine up really quickly.
Classic Mini Garage has commented on that and said no chance at 110 bhp with that spec.
He'd know better, Paul Jeffries.
I'd say about 80 to 85 with that cam.
80 to 85, really, Paul? Oh, well, Paul, I'm gonna hand over to the voice of knowledge and experience there, because I'm not an engine builder, so I wouldn't know. So Paul reckons 80 to 85.
That's classic Mini Garage, yeah.
Yeah. We've run out of questions at the moment, so
I do have another.
feel free to ask some more questions.
I haven't got this one written down yet. So Mixing Makers, he says, hi, can you tell me what settings you use on your welder? I've recently purchased the Clark 135TE after watching you, and I'm just practicing before I start welding my Mini.
Okay, what's it set on at the moment, Mark? Although I wasn't welding steel last time.
On that note, I'm going to have a cigarette break.
Mark,
Is that all right?
yeah, Mark's just down for a cigarette break.
I'm not smoking in my car.
Got it? Yeah. So yeah, welding settings. I'm talking about welding mild steel body panels. So I generally have that on number 1, maximum, and then wire speed anything between 6 and 7. Yeah, not much more than that. 1 maximum is absolutely fine. You might find that's a little bit too much, but I generally tweak the wire speed around between sort of 6 and 7 to get the right balance. But again, like I said before, very much practice makes perfect with welding.
You might go calendars.
Stephen Stokes, hi Stephen. Good to have you on this evening. Again, seen you in the channel for a very long time, so thanks for your support. Question for both. Mark's just having a cigarette at the moment. I'll answer for him. But are you guys going to Mini Action Day next year? Yes, if it's on, definitely. Love Mini Action Day. It's probably one of my favourite outings last year. I just enjoyed it because it's one of those mini events that you can drive to, run your car around on the track day, have a real bit of fun and drive home, and it doesn't cost a great deal of money. So I think it's a good show, that. Really disappointed they didn't get it on this year, but again, like all the other mini shows, it's always a bit disappointing. I'm sure you guys with minis as well have probably been feeling it as well, just sat at home. And I think next year on the sort of concourse and show scene for minis, it's going to be really tough competition because everyone's just had a really sort of long extended period of minis in garages, people being furloughed, a lot of restorations that were sort of, you know, hadn't been touched for a long time. People had the time to get into them and get them done. And so the disappointing thing now is just that yeah, you can't show them to anyone else.
Rust Bucket commented earlier to say that he was looking for tips on welding and you suggesting to go through YouTube. He actually landed on your April Fool's welding video. You got him.
Yeah, I forgot about that one, the April Fool's welding video. That was quite good. That the bacon on the sill. I think I've still got the sill down there somewhere, still with the bacon stains on it.
I'm back.
He's back. Hit a nicotine. A question from Jason Ackley for Mark. Again, just a bit of a recap, just people joining later on than might not have heard. What's the next project?
It's my Mark III Mini Cooper S. It's 1970. It's bronze yellow. It's just a bit tired on the paintwork. There's some overseals on it and bits of rust here and there which I need to clean off. So it's going to be bare shelled again.
I've just seen Rust Bucket's comments. Sign the bacon stain seal and whack it back on eBay. I'm sure I've still got it. That's the bacon stain there. It's got a bit rusty. You'd have thought the oil from the bacon would have stopped it rusting, but yeah. Stick that on eBay. I don't know why I've kept half a seal, but you never know. Classic Mini Garage.
Paul.
Oh, it's Paul, isn't it? I was getting confused. Question for Mark. Oh, he's testing you here. He's testing you. What final drive is in Bolt?
I don't know.
It's a simple answer.
Without looking at the spec sheet, I don't know.
It was changed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was because I think we'd done a few track days at Brands Hatch and it was topping out at about 110 miles an hour, something like that.
Yeah.
And then Nick put a different diff in it, and so I think that was good for about 130 miles an hour. The diff in it was more suited to Goodwood than it was Brands, but it was definitely quicker
Actually,
or higher top end with the later diff in. Just before I forget as well, because I will forget, I just want to say, and again I'm sure it's Mark, same views really, got to say thanks to the wives as well.
yes.
So,
Oh yes. Thank you, Lucy.
if you'd have noticed in the recent, well, for quite a while now, Lucy's played quite an active part in the rebuild of the ERA. I've noticed she tends to get the less glamorous jobs, cleaning things up. And
Small hands. I've got big hands. She's got much smaller hands.
very good at putting turbo exhaust brackets on, apparently, I
Oh
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's done that 3 times, I think. Did it, babe? Yeah. Twice we were using the wrong clamp. Speedo drives, good at that. I can't quite get my hand up past the drive shaft. Yeah, and we were doing something, we were tightening up the engine steady here, and I couldn't quite get my hand in and hold the spanner. So,
yeah, and again, Andy's taking all the notes in the live feed at the moment, but it's not only about having a sympathetic wife when you're out in the evenings in the garage instead of in front of the telly, or weekends, not out with the kids or stuff like that, but it's also there's plenty of times I've come in and said, 10 o'clock at night, can you help me bleed these brakes, or just about to put the engine in, can you come and operate the crane for me? So yeah, thank you very much.
Lucy, you are a godsend.
And she definitely does add a bit of glamour to the channel as well.
Oh
so
yeah, sure, yeah.
better dress sense than you and I anyway. Alex NSE, question to both. Have you or would you consider a bike engine conversion? So I assume owning one or building one.
As I said earlier, if it's not got an A series in it, then it's not a Mini. So I have seen them, and I have considered it, but it's not for me.
I would buy one as an engineering project. I've seen, every now and again, I've seen them come up, part finished project, you know, ZZR 1100 engine or something like that, and they've done, it looks like they've done all the hard work, so they bought a Promotive kit or something like that, and they've never finished it. Quite often I see them coming up, and I think, yeah, I wouldn't mind buying that. You know, I've got the skills to be able to finish it, but they've, what I thought they started out as a good price, they've always ended up going for ridiculous amounts of money. But it's one of those sort of itches. I've had an engine conversion, I've had a turbo mini, I've had all sorts of other A series minis. Bike engine one, yeah, I'd like to own one for a bit and have a play around with one. Yeah, I've never been in one either. It'd be interesting to see.
I expect they're good fun.
Yeah, yeah. Question from Dave Fielding from earlier. Hiya Dave, have you a time scale on the Mayfair? Yeah, and I mean Mark's similar to me. I think that when you start a project, it's full on until it's finished, and if it takes longer than 6 months, I'm bored of it. So I will start the Mayfair. October. I might just start some few little bits in the few next sort of coming weeks, but it will properly start in October. So October, November, December, January, February, March. First show Brooklands, 6 months done. If it takes any longer than that, I will be bored with it. But as far as the Mayfair as a sort of long-term mini for me to own, I'm in no rush to sell it. So I bought it kind of as a replacement for Vinny. I thought it'd be interesting to do for the channel, but it's not a buy it and flip it type of project. I will probably sell it at some point, but initially it'd be something to do for the winter, use it for the summer, and then see where we are end of next year, I think, which is what I said with Sprout. So
you have a comment.
Oh dear, Poppy. I'm sorry, Poppy. So my daughter Poppy didn't get a mention either, and she said, "What about the daughters? I cleaned the whole garage at least 4 times." So yeah, I've got to shout out to the daughter Poppy and Charlie as well, my son. So when I was doing the ceiling and everything like that, again, I don't like working in a mess, so Poppy was coming out here constantly cleaning the garage. Charlie was picking up offcuts of wood and putting them away, so yeah, it's kind of a bit of a, to be fair, and similar to Mark as well, minis are in the family, really. It's not something just I do, you know, I go to shows, the kids will come along, wife comes along.
Begrudgingly sometimes. Yeah, all my kids, they do have to put up with a lot, I suppose. Being obsessed with minis, working on the minis, asking them to help polish the minis, which normally before London's brightened, and the time I spend in the garage that I'm not spending with them sometimes, even though they're on their iPads, computers, or YouTube. Yeah, thank you.
More for you?
I guess a question for you, people watching as well, the viewers. What would you like to see on the videos as well? I mean, there are sometimes I look back on stuff now, and certainly when I was editing Mark on the ERA the other evening, you were doing the tappets, and I'm going through it, and I started editing, and I thought, I'm not going to do this. I thought, I've done it before, there's loads on there, it's your first time in doing it, you know, I'm not going to put it up there for someone to go, oh, you didn't quite do that right, or you should have used rule of 9 like this or something like that. I thought it doesn't really add value to the channel. So, you know, for me, sometimes it's difficult to think of new things which would be interesting to the channel. There's certain bits of the video editing I quite enjoy. I quite enjoy doing the filming sometimes, and I film lots of bits. And you do it in a certain way, and you put it all together, and it looks really good. And there is a bit of a kick from doing that, but I've done all sorts of things in the past. I've got a video going up Wednesday, which is a bit of a product review, which I don't usually do. I try and shy away from them a little bit, because I don't want to try and bias people's opinions. But generally, I think if something's really good, I think I'll try and share it with everyone else. But yeah, I'm always a little bit cautious, because some of you people watching now that have been watching the channel for years, making comments, you probably know me better than, you know, some other people do that are new to the channel. And I'll put something up sometimes, and I'm generally pretty humble, and people will say, you didn't do that right, or you done this wrong. And so generally you'll hear me say, this is the way I do it, because I don't want to be, you get so criticised when you say, right, we're going to do it like this, and someone always knows better. It is frustrating sometimes that no matter what you do, someone will go, oh, I wouldn't have done it like that, you don't want to do it like that, you should do it this way, shouldn't do it that way. And you think, well, okay, you know, it's worked. And occasionally people make themselves look silly because they make comments about, we've had comments about the ERA before saying you've twisted the shell and that sort of thing.
Don't look twisted to me.
Looks alright to me. You've done that paintwork completely wrong, wouldn't have done it like that. You know, do you know what? Maybe a paintwork professional knows better. So it's difficult sometimes to do how-to videos, because, as I've said lots of times, someone always knows how to do it better than you do.
For me, it's just documenting my project.
Yeah.
You know, I know you sort of fancy it up and do what you do with your editing and stuff, but for me, it's just, if someone's interested in that whole project, which there has been a lot of interest in it, it's, you know, it makes me want to just press the record button.
Yeah.
Because someone's interested. My videos definitely aren't how to.
Yeah. Because
I'm still learning.
Yeah. There's quite a bit of footage sometimes that just goes in the bin. I sit there sometimes, I'll watch back a bit of video and I think, God, I'm bored of this. Other people will be bored of that. Certainly the Rolling Road video that went out Friday night, the bit with me talking to begin with, I watched that back and I thought, God, I've waffled on for 4.5 minutes or something like that. I've got to make this a bit more interesting, so I put sort of the time lapse at the top just to sort of keep people interested. But I mean, if you've got any suggestions, pop them down the box. Let me know down the bottom. There's some videos that I've got in my mind that I've not got round to doing yet. I must get round to doing. I've never really done a good proper walk round of PL because it's quite an interesting car. I end up just doing snippets of it now and again. And I'd love to do, I like to do, I've had the idea of doing like a top 10 things to look at when you're buying a Mini. So and again, it's the top 10 things I look for from buying a Mini. And it's just, sometimes it's nice to share that stuff. I mean, for me, the first thing, number one, is when I walk up to a Mini, does it look right? There are so many cars I've been to see, when you get out of the car to go and look at it, and immediately you're like, it looks, doors look a bit wonky, and panel gaps, and yeah, I think it'd be quite interesting to do kind of a top 10 there. Jason Ackles is a good question. So, if you had to keep one Mini, what would it be? And he's also said as well, maybe discuss all Mark's Minis. So I think I put it in a comment the other night, because there are 11, aren't there?
No, there's 10.
10.
10 and a thingy.
So first off, let's go through them.
So I've got the 1960 van, I've got the 68 Riley Alf. I've got the 1970 Cooper S, Mark III Cooper S. 1975 1275 GT. I've got the 82 pickup. ERA. I've got Rufus, which is a show car. Bolt, yeah, Bolt. That's the race car.
Kit.
And Kit. Oh, and Paul Smith.
So, if you could only have one.
Oh, Mark's got a buyout here because Kit and the Paul Smith are Lucy's.
Yeah. I think if I really had, if it came down to it, I think that I'd keep the ERA.
Really?
For speed, comfort, for me it looks, yes it's 80s, but it's everything about it looks great.
Yeah. And for me, I think it's reasonably easy. It would be PL. If I had to keep one, it's a tough one actually because I really like Sprout, and Sprout to drive is just fantastic. It's honestly like you've just driven it off the forecourt at Caffin's Rover dealership. It feels like a brand new car. And I think why I like, one of the other reasons I really like Sprout is, fortunately, and again, I keep saying it, I've worked in the motor trade. When you do that and you work in garages, you're driving 5 or 6 cars a day at least. You drive tens of thousands of cars in your lifetime, and I've driven, I would say, probably hundreds, if not thousands, of minis. And Sprout is just absolutely spot on. They always talk about cars built on a Friday. Sprout was definitely Monday, just after lunchtime, when everyone had got after the hangover and they were proper spot on and on it. Because the engine's amazing in it. I keep looking at it thinking, has this got a head on it or something like that? Because it feels as quick as PL, and PL's 85 brake horsepower. And I think some of that is Sprout's on little 12-inch wheels. And PL's on big 13-inch wheels with wide arches. It's got a different diff in it, and I don't know. But Sprout drives absolutely lovely. But if I had to sell them and keep one, I would keep PL just because of its complete rareness, and it would have been the car if I'd had the money back in the day to buy a Mini. It would have been that spec. So,
but I'm not selling any of them yet. For me, a lot of them are investments as well. Toys and investments, so yeah.
Yeah, better than money in the bank sometimes. Sometimes I think there is, people do get a little bit jealous sometimes. You've got 10 minis. And some people are like, it's a bit excessive and that sort of thing. But I always think to myself, I know people that own Ferraris and McLarens and things like that. It's one of them, 10 minis or one Ferrari or nice Porsche or something like that. I mean,
but also people don't know my background. They don't know how I've got 10 minis. Yeah. They don't know how I've worked for all these years.
Yeah, that was cash machine.
Yeah.
Gary Davies. Hi Gary.
Hi Gary.
As your new dark blue Auto Mini has little in the way of work doing, what will you be building next? So you're quite right, the Mayfair doesn't want a huge amount of work. There is probably...
Until you start stripping it down.
There's probably enough to keep me busy for quite a few months there. Like I say, the engine will come out, gearbox will come out, all new gaskets. Auto gearbox I know nothing about, but I found some good resources, so I'll be putting new gaskets in that. It drives fine, but it does have a little bit of oil seepage on it. And then it'll be the same sort of thing. The bulkhead's going to want painting. That's all going to want tidying up. So yeah, it's not as big a project as the sprout or the ERA or anything like that, so it probably isn't going to take me 6 months. But I do have a big oil leak on PL, which I think I'm going to have to take the engine out. It's got an oil leak on the near side front of the engine, and it drips down the side of the timing case cover, or it's near the timing case cover, but it is not the timing case cover because I've done that a couple of years ago. It's not the crank pulley oil seal because I've done that a couple of years ago. It's not the head gasket because that's been done. It's not the rocker cover gasket. It's not the breather. It's not the gasket speedo drive on the gearbox. And it only leads me to believe it's probably the half moon seal on the end of the engine by the gearbox, which means the gearbox has got to come off the engine to do that. So
you're going to pull the motor.
So I'll probably pull the motor. It's always guaranteed to get you a few thousand views, that is, if I pull the motor. And I might supercharge it at the same time. So yeah, you're quite right. Probably haven't got enough to keep me that busy on the Mayfair, but there's other stuff to do. Classic mini garage, Paul Jeffries.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me. Paul Jeffries. I'll tell you what. I'll take my hat off to you, mate. He says, was it the video sound on the last video on the ERA, or was it the exhaust blowing slightly? I noticed that it on the camera shots from outside the car. Now, I spent bloody ages editing those in-car shots, and then I probably filmed for an hour inside the car, and I used about 2 minutes worth of footage. The exhaust wasn't blowing, it was whacking itself against the transmission tunnel, wasn't it? It was making a horrendous vibration.
It was actually the box. As you pull, when you put your foot down, obviously the engine was moving.
Yeah.
And it was the rear box was hitting on the subframe, on the rear subframe.
Right.
That's what it was.
So yeah, you're bang on, Paul. I tell you what, you've got a good ear there, because yeah, I tried editing that out of the videos because it was really loud.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just all vibrating, and you know, it sounded fantastic, but the footage was just kind of ruined by the exhaust making a noise. And I think me and Mark were speaking the other day. Actually, I mean, you've seen sort of the torque and power figures for the engine. It's 138 foot-pound of torque, 124 brake horsepower. It's got standard engine bushes on it at the moment.
I've changed.
You've changed them, yeah, because I've experienced this in the past where I've upgraded engine bushes for poly bushes, and yes, it stops it moving, but it creates a lot of in-dash noise, vibration, that sort of thing. But it's one of those things, if you're going to have that amount of power, that amount of torque, I don't think rubber bush is going to cut it. So
well, what I did Saturday, so the engine mount here, got rubber on the bulkhead and poly on the engine.
Yeah.
And then I left this side both the MPI rubbers, the bottom end gearbox steady. I put rubber, poly. I don't know whether that stopped movement of the engine, but I only noticed it on the rolling mode.
Yeah.
As you did the power run. But the rubbers, there was some wear in them when I took them off.
Yeah. Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I've just changed 2 of them for now, just to see how that works, and I've also changed, adjusted the exhaust so it's not touching the subframe now.
And did you put MPI bushes in the single piece ones?
Yeah.
Richard J, have either of you fancied putting a Jack Knight 5-speed box in? So
they're like Rockinghall's stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, so PA's got a Jack Knight 5-speed gearbox in it. Quite rare, quite expensive. I think they were about a £3,500 option back when that car was new. So PA has a Jack Knight 5-speed gearbox in it. To be honest, they are not. People don't. I might be speaking out of turn, but I've had lots of people say, Jack Knight 5-speed gearbox, they're not very strong. They don't last very long, very expensive when they go wrong. I don't think you can get after bits now. Again, Paul Jeffrey, classic mini garage,
Yeah.
is on the chat, and I'm sure he probably knows better than me. But I don't think you can get the bits for them now. I think if they go wrong, it's a real specialist repair, quite expensive, and as I say, some people have said that they're not very robust. But PL has a jackknife 5-speed gearbox in it, and PL's done 105,000 miles, and the gearbox still feels fine, doesn't jump out of gear, doesn't whine. It seems okay, but I think PL has been driven very gently over the years. It's not really had a hard life, so although it's done a lot of miles, I think a lot of those miles have been driven quite gently.
Didn't a couple of the early ERAs have jackknife?
Late ones. So the last, I think the last production ERA that sold was J7 ERA, which incidentally used to be in Brighton. The guy was in Brighton Mini Club. Was a jackknife development car, so it had a 5-speed gearbox in that, and they did experiment with it on some of the ERAs. I'm guessing either the gearbox wasn't strong enough for the amount of torque, or again it was just too expensive. I know someone said about the steering wheel on the prototypes on the early ERAs earlier. Again, I think the ERAs new standard trim was £12,800 or something like that. If you added leather, spotlights, it took it to about just over £13,000, and that was at a time when you could go and buy a Mini City for about £6 grand, I think, 5 or 6 grand. So they were more than double the price. So I think a lot of stuff ERA wanted to do, they just, you had to put it to a reasonable price so you could sell the car. But yeah, I love the jackknife gearbox. I think it's brilliant. It's nice to have. Certainly nice on cruising. It's actually a little bit. If you drive, when I drive them back to back, and I'll have to do a little bit of a video driving Sprout and PL back to back, because one is a completely standard MPI Mini, the other one's completely modified MPI Mini. But the final sort of the top end RPMs when you're doing sort of 70 miles an hour is pretty much the same in Sprout as it is in the PL, although PL's got the 5-speed gearbox. So all it really gives you is an extra gear lower down, rather than like an overdrive gear. Grandma's X. So hi Grandma's X.
Hello.
Hiya, been a subscriber for a while as well. Have you measured the sound level during a drive? Because it sounds very quiet on the video. And he says, super nice build, mate. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's funny you should say that, because me and Lucy went out on it yesterday night, and we come over the bypass near us, and I was doing about 70 ish, and I commented to her how quiet the car was. So I don't know whether that's partly the soundproofing I put in. It's got some underlay in it. Obviously it's got thicker carpet. So, but it's noticeably quieter than all my other cars.
Yeah. My experience with ERAs from old actually was they are very, very quiet. And again, this one's very, very quiet as well.
And there's no rattles.
No rattles. The bonnet insulation makes a huge difference. So I fitted it on Sprout. It's a bit of a pain because it's a bit messy, and you'd have seen they don't stick that well, but it's amazing how much noise they take out the car. And just lifting the bonnet up and down, it's about twice the weight, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can really, really feel. I've just noticed Benfood, happy birthday for yesterday. So I don't know whether you're gone or you're still there, but he just mentioned it was his birthday yesterday. So
happy birthday.
have a good evening. Happy birthday.
He's leaving the chat. He's leaving the chat now, so.
Excellent. Cool. Gareth Hill.
Hello, Gareth.
Question for me. What's your top tip for keeping SPIs in top shape? SPIs, MPIs scare Mini owners. They're really sort of cautious of them, and a lot of people will be put off by certainly SPIs and MPIs because they're more complicated than having a carburettor on there, and certainly when they go wrong, they can be more difficult to diagnose. They're obviously more complicated. and when they do go wrong, it gets more expensive. But more SPIs than MPIs. MPIs are actually a little bit simpler than SPI minis. SPI minis are a little bit more complicated. But as far as an SPI mini, vacuum pipes are the plague of them. If you've got running issues, not idling very well, hunting, that sort of thing, they've got, I think there's 1, 2, 3, I think there's 4 major vacuum pipes which go from the back of the SPI unit, the inlet manifold. One goes to the map sensor built into the ECU, the other goes to the bottom of the air filter. But they crack and they split and they break. I don't think these vacuum pipes are very expensive. If I had an SPI, I would just buy a set of them, put them on there anyway, because they just crack just because of the heat and they can cause loads of problems. And the other one is the wiring as well. So you know, the wiring plugs and harnesses and that sort of thing just get broken, corroded and that sort of thing over time. So they just generally want a good bit of TLC, but I would say don't give up on one. Still to this day, I think, of all the minis I've ever driven, had any experience with, an SPI, when it runs nicely, is one of the smoothest minis you're ever likely to come across. Start on the button, idle beautifully, rev really nicely and freely. I think they're actually better than MPIs. MPIs are always a little bit lumpy on idle. They seem a little bit wheezy, but when you get a good SPI, they're beautiful cars. So stick at it. Don't do what most people do, which is to throw away the injection unit and put a HIF 44 on it or something like that.
Did you see the braided vacuum pipe I got on this?
No.
Gonna have to show you. You know, it was mounting.
Yeah.
I just found it on a.
It's a live interactive session now. Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah. That is diesel spill pipe, that one, it looks of it. Yeah. Top tip for you. From Mark, if you've got a turboed car and it keeps melting the vacuum pipes, diesel spill pipe works a treat, right diameter, and it's braided as well. That's good fun, that, right? Well done.
Could you just recap for Toonie? He's just joined the chat a little bit late to it, you know. He wanted to ask the one question from Mark. If you could keep one mini, what would it be and why?
Be the ERA. I've fallen in love with it. Really. I liked the ERA when I bought it, but it wasn't as fast, and it's, you know, although it's not finished, it's complete. It's very quick, and yeah, it's probably worth the most out of all the cars as well. So yeah, it ticks all the boxes.
Cool. Right, Mr. Toon, good to have you on board.
Yes, hello Alex. He's seeing you.
Oh, and I think on your video earlier, I think you should spray the wheels and not powder coat them. I think the finish is better, and I might be wrong here, but I think the finish will be better sprayed than it will be powder coated. But I think you said about losing, you'd lose the numbers in the pressing on the steel if they were powder coated, but I don't think you would. If you took all the paint that was in the grooves out and cleaned that out, you should still see that unless they applied the powder coat really, really thick. But I think I'd have them sprayed rather than powder coated. They wouldn't have been powder coated back in the day, I wouldn't have thought. So more originality. And it's not like you're going to be taking it out in all weathers and curbing it and things like that, where you might need it powder coated for extra durability. I think having it sprayed will be spot on. So that's my opinion anyway.
Sound to me.
Peter Demetrio, again long-term subscriber. Peter, say hi, thank you.
Hello Peter.
Question to both. Do you think you'll supercharge a Mini on the channel?
Me, no. Rufus was supercharged, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Originally. Unless you're going to throw loads and loads of money at it, I don't think the A series is really built for a supercharger.
Yeah, for me, it's one of those itches I haven't scratched yet. So yeah, I probably would. If I had a Mini that would take a supercharger, I would certainly be interested in doing it. I'd like to do it. Sometimes for me, these Minis become, like I say, I don't particularly like driving them that much. I enjoy working on them, I enjoy polishing them and cleaning them and looking after them. Sometimes I just do stuff because it's interesting to do, because I'm interested in it. That's exactly what I was done with Vinny. It was like, I got bored one winter and I thought, I'll do an engine conversion. Didn't have much money, I thought I'd do a Vauxhall conversion because I can buy one of them quite cheap. And then everything else on Vinny after that was kind of always just, I'll do it because I've never done it before. I never did get round to nitrous in Vinny. I'd always wanted to do that. I've never had nitrous on a car before, and that would have been the car to fit it on. So again, supercharging, if I had a Mini that would take a supercharger, probably. And yeah, the MPIs would take a supercharger actually, but I think it's a bloody expensive conversion because you've got to do all the fueling as well. So maybe one for the future for me, not for Mark though.
No.
Matthew White, question for both. What part of the restoration did you enjoy the most? First part.
I actually really like spraying. It's quite a quick and easy-ish thing to do, and when you've laid on the paint and the clear coat, and you see that beautiful finish that's come out the gun, it's like, that's probably what I do enjoy spraying. The rest of it I don't really enjoy.
And I think for me, what part of this restoration did I enjoy the most? Obviously, I sort of probably only involved for about the first quarter of it, but I would say probably the most satisfying bit for me is because we've done a couple of projects before, and each project so far has had pretty much the same panels, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, they'll get the end machine, you know, third seal, fully built up, ready to go in. And I think by the time you done this one, we had a bit of we knew exactly what we were doing, and we knew the quickest way of doing it. And I think I went down a couple of times and you'd prepped everything already, and it was literally like, grab the torch, weld 8 foot of seam along the floor, and yeah, it's quite satisfying when you can do that. So yeah, that was probably the bit I enjoyed the most. Or I think, you know, first start and fault finding, it gets bloody frustrating sometimes, but it is quite satisfying when you get it and you fix it and you find that one wire that isn't quite right, and you put it right and then it runs. And then of course it's the driving it once it's done, isn't it? Can't beat that. And then second sort of half of that question, which part would you do differently next time?
The spray job.
Oh, there's a common theme there, isn't there? Spray job.
I suppose the more spraying I do, and the more I sit here looking at the car, you just realise that preparation is key.
Yeah. Question from my daughter, Poppy. Right, Poppy?
I'm glad she's still watching.
Your iPhone charger cable's melted, by the way. Question to both. So, did lockdown help you do more with the minis?
It helped me spray the minis more. Not in some respects, yes, because I obviously sprayed yours, and then I sprayed this another twice. So I would have liked to have been finished by the end of June, but it was mid-August that it was finished. So
yeah,
yes and no.
Yeah, and I guess for me, no, it didn't really help. I mean, lockdown. I worked throughout lockdown. The only difference lockdown meant was I wasn't travelling anywhere, and I'm still not travelling anywhere now. So 98% of the time I'm working from home, which is fantastic because 5:30 I finish work, or 5:45 or 6 o'clock. But the key of last year was go to work Monday morning at 6:30, get in from work Thursday evening at 9 o'clock at night. You know, and be away for a few days, and it was kind of like that week in, week out. You know, it wasn't always staying away, but you know, Monday morning was go out, and then I'll be back Tuesday, I'll be back Wednesday, or something like that. So I never had that time in the evening to do anything on the car. So it did help like that with Sprout. So you know, I had a lot of time in the evening, shut the laptop at 5:30, 6 o'clock, go out into the garage, and got a good few hours out there working on the car, which I wouldn't have usually been able to do.
And also the time for editing videos. So.
Yeah. But some frustrations as well. So, you know, Sprout still hasn't got the right screen in it. I still want to get one, but I've got to go and pick it up from mini spares. And normally I'd be up and down the M1 and M40 all the time and just drop in there and go and get one. But I haven't been past there for flipping ages. So, yeah, it kind of did. It did help out and has helped out a bit. I mean, yeah, I don't know, you know, it affected people in different ways, didn't it, lockdown? So, question from Steve Sayers. So Steve donated the Cooper decals and pinstripes on Sprout, and they're still working. Haven't broken them yet. Still look a treat. They're brilliant. Thank you, Steve. Steve said, question to both. What about a stock car Mini for you both, with Arlington just down the road? Mini stock car racing. Too old, I think.
Yeah, it seems wrong to be bashing up a Mini there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've got to admit, I'd feel the same actually. I've seen, and just recently there's been a few stock car Minis on eBay for like 1,500 quid. And you think, that's a cheap Mini that is. You buy it, take all the metalwork off, some new panels and put it back on the road again, you know.
Is that a channel challenge?
One careful owner, never raced or rallied. Yeah, channel challenge, that'd be pretty good. Take a stock car and put it back on the road. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's not appealed to me. It doesn't appeal to me. And I think with the whole sort of racing thing, and I don't know whether Mark feels the same. Doing the track days is brilliant. I really, really enjoy doing the track days because you're only ever racing yourself.
Well, we're racing each other actually. Mentally, I always want to beat you. I am very competitive.
I just like the laid back approach to a track day, especially say like at Brands. And Goodwood's just as nice as well, isn't it? Just twice the price. But it's go down there, have a garage, go in and out as much as you like, and you drive to your own personal limits. I always have this bit in the back end of my mind that's not my car. It's not, if I crash it, it's going to be expensive.
Just got to stay out of that kitty litter.
Yeah.
I've got no more questions.
No more questions. So I think we've been going for a couple of hours now. So I think we'll give it a few more minutes just for any last moment questions, and then wrap it up. I've just seen Sam join. Hi Sam. I was watching wasn't your video, it was Mark's video. Britax Cooper replica. Very, very nice looking car. I do like that. It looks very, very nice. I like that sort of look. The sort of Britax Coopers. I think the yellow one for me. That's If I could have one of them, definitely.
And just some comments on your editing that you were talking about earlier. Russ Bucket said, you're doing a cracking job as it is, editing, voiceovers, filming, etc. Just keep doing what you're doing. Dave Fielding said, don't be too critical, kids. At the end of the day, we keep tuning in. Videos are always good, and I bet there's a lot of time put into them. And Alex NSE said, I have a suggestion. Do not change a thing. It's great as it is if it ain't broke.
Oh, thanks. I really appreciate that. I did. Someone commented earlier on in the week actually. So, like I say, I do actually enjoy editing. I really like doing it, filming it, and then you put it into edit and you play it back, and it's like Well, that's pretty good, that. Quite enjoy that. It's especially nice when you edit it, you put it in, and you don't plan it at all, but just the cuts in the videos line up with the music as well. Because I always try and do that, but sometimes it just, by chance, it all lines up. So I'm kind of, it's almost become a bit of a hobby, the video editing stuff, but as any YouTuber will tell you, it takes a huge amount of time. I think the last week to catch up on the videos, because I wasn't going to go live today, I said to Mark, I think Thursday, or we might do it the week afterwards, just because I had a load of footage on there, it all needed editing, and I was spending probably 4 hours each evening after work just doing it. But I kind of get a kick about it, which predominantly, if I look at the amount of times people have thumbs up compared to when people thumbs down, it is ridiculous. It's something like, I don't know, 5,000 to 6,000 thumbs up and 20 thumbs down. As a proportion, thumbs up, thumbs down, it is tiny. But you know, if you are a YouTuber and sometimes you may have put, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours into an edit, and then someone will thumbs down, and it's just like, I do sometimes just frustrating, yeah. But it you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. As I say, I'm really flattered by all the people that do thumbs up anyway. And yeah, thanks for the comments about the videos. That it is difficult getting the right mix. Sometimes I think to myself, I could spend a week editing a video and I could make it look really polished and really good, best of my abilities, but I'd only be putting out one video a fortnight or something like that. And the pace at which we work, it would just never work like that. Sometimes there's stuff on time lapse and you think, well, I'm skipping over a bit here, but it's getting the balance right, and it sounds like the balance is kind of there. As I say, generally for me, I'll watch it back sometimes, I'll get a bit bored with it, and I think I'll just shorten that bit, or you know, I'll change that, take a bit of my waffling out. That's quite a good one. So Grandma's X says, what was the most expensive item during the build? Either a part or tool, excluding paint. The single most expensive item.
Door hinges. Single item. I don't know. What do you mean, the engine? I mean, the engine was 7,000.
Yeah, I mean the single probably biggest expense was the engine, wasn't it?
Yeah. Interior as a whole was quoted at 2,500, and it ended up at 4,500. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of individual components. Windscreen, they're a few couple of £100.
No, the heated front screen is only 115 plus the VAT. Yeah, there's nothing that really sort of jumped out at me cost-wise, apart from the hinges that I thought.
Yeah. I mean, there's some stuff on an ERA, and you know, again, we mentioned it earlier, and I said, don't ever throw anything away until you finish with it. There's some stuff on an ERA which just go for ridiculous money, but I think you managed to retain most of the parts there. I mean, things.
Yeah, all the running gear was all new anyway, just because of fatigue and the mileage it done. But I suppose maybe the brake calipers. Yeah. They were probably the most, as a pair of things, the most expensive. Couple of £100 maybe.
Oh, the KAD 4-pot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they're only a couple of £100, aren't they? Yeah. Right. Just going to do a quick shout out to Dave Fielding. It's his wife Natalie's birthday tomorrow, so Natalie Fielding, happy birthday for tomorrow.
Natalie.
Alex Toon, you definitely have some competition for Classic Mini Workshop's #1 fan here, because Dave is right up there. Classic Mini Details, I like this one. How much, I'm going to add a bit to this, Paul. He said, how much did you spend on oil? And then I'm going to ask how many... Tooney, sorry, yeah. How much you spend on oil, and how many litres of oil did you go through?
I went through 30 litres of oil at approximately £20 per 5 litre. So
Leave the maths to the channel, yeah?
Yeah, there were a few oil disasters, weren't there?
Yeah.
Leaks, and then of course you're running it in, so you flush it, and then a pipe come off, and
I think the first one was when the first time I filled out with oil, the rocker cover gasket wasn't on properly, and there was no diff oil seal in the diff. I was a rod change there. So as I was tipping it in, it was just literally back out again.
coming out the bottom. Brilliant. Right, I think we'll wrap it up there. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join in and come and listen. It's really humbling sometimes to think that someone would sit at home and tune in to
us
waffling on and just and yeah, you know, again, as I said earlier, you people watching the video make the channel. We would not be spending time filming stuff, editing stuff, putting it on YouTube if no one watched it. So you're as much as a part of this as anyone, and yeah, and you know, I really appreciate every time everyone leaves a comment or gives a thumbs up. I think unless I miss the odd one here or there, we look at every single comment. You'll always see if there's a comment, you'll get a thumbs up and you get a heart against it. Just for me, I wanted to acknowledge to you people that we've seen it and looked at it. So
and I always try and comment on any comments, especially on, I don't do it on your videos, but ones of the ERA.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you.
Cheers, fellas and ladies. So have a good evening, and we'll be back Wednesday. I've got a video Wednesday on Sprout. So cheers. Thank you.